If you're saying you don't like AI, you're basically saying my feelings are more important than where the world is going. I learned a long time ago as a business owner that personal opinions just don't really matter at all.
Marcus Sheridan is an entrepreneur and leading expert in sales, marketing, and customer experience, known for his groundbreaking approach. They ask, you answer.
He recently launched an innovative AI-powered pricing estimator tool that helps companies provide instant pricing directly on their websites, driving customer engagement and boosting sales.
If you refuse to use it, your competitors, they're going to become much faster than you are, and they're going to be spending less money. So you're going to be saying, I don't know how they're offering these prices. I don't know how they do it that quickly. They're doing it because they're using the technology the right way.
Why is pricing such an important part in the buyer's journey and how people want to buy?
When you're researching how much something costs, you're on a website and you cannot find any pricing information, you would say, I feel frustrated. Now there's three arguments why companies don't talk about cost and price. First one they say is every job is different. Well, that's the easiest one to address online. And how you address it is second reason is they say, well, we're more expensive and we don't want to scare people away. What we know to be true is the thing that actually scares people away online isn't when you teach them well and educate them. It's when
we're shifting into a new gear, but how is it possible? How do you feel?
If you want to have a modern post-AI sales and marketing strategy that will certainly be built to last for the next 5 to 10 years and can help you become the most known and trusted brand in your market. If you want that.
Welkom bij de StoryBrand Podcast, waar wij geloven, if you confuse, you lose. Ruis in je communicatie is je grootste vijand. En het creëren van een duidelijke boodschap is de sleutel om je bedrijf te laten groeien. Dit is de StoryBrand Podcast.
Marcus, great to have you on the podcast, and thank you for taking the time to share about your journey with, they ask you answer, which is now called Endless Customers.
I'm happy to be here. And Dan, I just have always been so impressed with you and, what you're doing on your side of the world, bringing StoryBrand and bringing They Ask You Answer Now Endless Customers to your audience. I think it's wonderful. So I'm happy to have this conversation. It's overdue.
Yeah, we should have done it earlier. Well, this is the first, right? So let's do it. Thank you for being here. The StoryBrand and They Ask You Answer both place the customer at the center of attention. How do you see the synergy between these two methods, and how can entrepreneurs leverage the best of both worlds?
I don't know if you know this, Dan, but the number one book that is purchased with They Ask You Answer is StoryBrand, and it's fascinating. If you go to Amazon, you will see that it says people that buy this book also buy his story. Now, there's a reason for that, right? What StoryBrand does incredibly well, it helps you frame your messaging. When I say frame your messaging, understand what your focus is and how we should be doing that. Now, I actually talk about this. I don't know if they mention it in StoryBrand itself, but I do say this in Endless Customers. I think the best, because we know, let's say your homepage messaging, a lot of companies make it about themselves. They don't make it about the customer. That's a mistake. And we've got this. We talk about in Endless Customers the pronoun test, which is how many times on your homepage do you use the words you and your versus we and our, right? So many companies are obsessed with we and our. They like to talk about themselves, and they're not talking about you, your. But right. It should be about, of course, you, your needs, your problems, your worries, your life, your situation. Ultimately, where the two come together is this, though. They Ask You Answer, again, now Endless Customers, has always been obsessed with what does the buyer want? What does the buyer want? It's called They Ask You Answer. They being the buyer, the customer. StoryBrand is rooted in the idea that they are the hero. They are the ones that we must talk to. We are the guide. On the Endless Customer side, we are the guide that teaches them, right? So StoryBrand gets you in that right perspective. It does a very good job in terms of really making the website, your website, all about them and the phrases that you use and the messaging that you use. But when it comes to the heavy content, the heavy lifting of the content, articles, videos, and just your general content strategy all over the web, that's where Endless Customers comes into play.
Yeah. It's you could say StoryBrand is about creating clear message first. And then when you have your message clear, use the ask you answer as a framework to go deeper and take that role upon you in the deeper content.
That's right. That's a good way to put it.
So you began your journey in 2008. How has content marketing evolved since then? And what remains timeless in the they ask you answer philosophy, would you say?
Yeah. So for those that don't know my story, I started a swimming pool company in 2001. We were fighting to grow it, but then the economy hit us in the face. In 2008, we had the big crash. We thought we were going to lose the business. But the good thing about pain and suffering is it forces us outside of our comfort zone. And that's when I really started to learn about things like inbound marketing, content marketing, whatnot. And, what I really heard, Dan, in my simple pool guy mind at the time was, Marcus, if you just obsess over your customers' questions, worries, fears, issues, concerns, and you're willing to address them on your website, you might save your business. So I said, well, that's what we're going to do. We're going to become the Wikipedia of fiberglass swimming pools. And in the course of doing that, within about 2 years, we became the most trafficked swimming pool website in the world. But we did it because we were talking about things that nobody had ever talked about before. Now, how have things changed since then? Well, if you look at what we did in 2009 with River Pools, and this is one of the reasons why I had to redo They Ask You Answer. It's why we had to come out with Endless Customers, which is They Ask You Answer 3.0. And that is, if I did exactly what I did with River Pools in 2009 today, I wouldn't have that same level of success. And the reason for that is because my primary focus was really just content on my website with text and a decent amount of video on YouTube. I didn't do any social media at all. I wasn't across multiple platforms. I was really on 1.5 for the most part, in terms of intensely. Today, I would need to go beyond that. And of course, the reason for that is more than ever in certainly the history of the world, of the internet, people are getting their answers in a multiplicity of places and platforms. Neil Patel talks about this a lot, but Google only handles 18% of all online searches when it comes to products, services, etc. Right? It's 18%.
Way less than people think.
Yes. And so they were, where's the rest? Well, there's a lot on YouTube. There's a lot on social media. There's a lot on Amazon. And the list goes on, right? And so there's a lot on AI now, right? A ton. I mean, ChatGPT alone is in the billions, right, of searches that are happening over there on ChatGPT. This trend is only going to continue, which is why you cannot, in 2025 and beyond, you cannot build your house on Google. And I'm talking Google search and Google ads. If you look, and it's interesting, Dan, I got to say this. It's blown my mind since the proliferation of AI-based search, how many SEO companies are acting literally, they're saying, yeah, Google's not going to be affected by this. Are you on drugs?
Right.
Are you really being serious? No, you're being intellectually dishonest is what you're being. Because
wishful thinking.
If we look at it, yeah, very wishful thinking. Listen, a lot of people say that They Ask You Answer is the best SEO strategy ever written in a book format that's easy to understand, okay? All right, because it's not technical SEO. And I will be the first to say that You can't just do what's taught and they ask you answer and expect to win at the level you want to win in the future. Because it leans heavily towards Google and search.
Yeah.
Now, there's a million other reasons. Yes, to do they ask you answer now endless customers. There's many other reasons, but the point is, when it comes to Google, think about your Google search experience today. You can be ranked number 1 on Google, and for someone to see you, Dan, they've literally got to scroll down like twice, because number 1 is oftentimes so buried by Google. Because number 1, they showed sponsored searches now like they're the real organic search results.
Yeah.
And it's like every day they try to manipulate sponsored search so that it doesn't look like sponsored search.
Correct.
It's very nefarious.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is. And listen, I mean, I built an entire business on Google. It's obviously it's helped me to get where I am. But what they're doing is they're essentially saying, okay, we're going to drive the cost of Google Ads up. We're going to make that the focus of what people see first. Then, outside of sponsored search, you got your AI answer that oftentimes the AI summary is there. Then you might have your Google map if it's a local search. Then you might have a couple videos. And then finally, you've got whoever's ranked number 1. This is why we've got a proliferation of the zero-click phenomenon. So many people go to Google. The majority, more than half, go to Google, make a search, and don't click a blue link, i.e. your website.
Right.
So yeah, there's a big changes. The last thing I'll say about Google for now is if you look at this, if people continue to use Google less and less, what does that mean for Google Ads? It means that they're less and less effective. And what happens too is these companies are going to get more desperate to get leads, which is happening. So they're going to spend more on Google Ads. And so you're spending more for less results. This is why I've had dozens and dozens of organizations this year alone tell me, Marcus, I don't understand. We're spending the same, if not more, than we've always spent on Google Ads, and we're getting less results.
Yeah.
What's happening?
Yeah.
This is what's happening.
Yeah. Ja, thank you for sharing that. Veel zakelijke dienstverleners kampen met onduidelijke processen, versnipperde informatie en afhankelijkheid van collega's. En dat zorgt natuurlijk voor een hoop frustratie en onrust op de werkvloer. Clientbox stroomlijnt je dagelijkse operatie, brengt overzicht en zorgt ook voor rust in je hoofd en in je team. Ga naar clientbox.nl/podcast en ontdek hoe Clientbox jouw bedrijf efficiënter laat werken. I've heard you say before, Marcus, that there's actually 3 parties that you have to bear in mind as a company that you need to be aware of and that you need to influence. What are those 3 parties? And why is that a big change with the past?
Yeah, so who do we have to win the day with?
Right.
Well, in the past, we had to win with Google, and we had to win with consumers, buyers. We had to win with them. Today, we have to win with Google, with consumers, and we have to win with AI. And AI is influencing so much, and it will only continue to influence so much. If you look at just what's happened in the course of a couple of years since AI was, introduced to the world. At first, AI was mainly a creation tool, Dan. People said, oh, I can make these fun poems and I can write an article, right? But now AI is quickly becoming one of your best recommendation tools. It is such a buyer's tool. It's a negotiation tool. It is, I could go on and on about it. But what does this mean? As people become more informed and more educated, less ignorant as to what's available to them, they will use AI and AI-based search like ChatGPT more and more and more, Perplexity and others. So this means that you must win when it comes to AI recommendations. So you've got AI recommendations, you've got Google's recommendations, and you've got consumer recommendations. Win all three. How do you win all three? Well, we could talk about that, but you don't want to follow the rules that everybody else is following, because that's your quick ticket to not being found, not getting noticed, and not being recommended.
Yeah, so there's a big change through AI. I remember we had a conversation, I think it was a year ago, with Chris Marr, you and me, about AI and the things that are going on in the world. And you said, like, the only reason I would be involved in any company nowadays would be if they had a very big focus on AI. We need to embrace AI. There's many things that you are doing. One of the things you told me was, like, you know, if I have my workout on a treadmill, for example, I'm watching videos every day, I'm diving into AI, I'm studying AI, I want to be a student of AI. How could companies, what would be your recommendation if you would sit in front of a CEO of a large organization or small? What would be your recommendation saying, this is what I would do, highly recommended concerning AI and your marketing and sales?
Yeah, there's so much to this, Dan, but
it's a broad question, right?
Yeah, you've got to get into the sandbox. You got to start to play. Now, for the person that's on the extreme other side of this that says, I think AI is the end of the world. I think AI is the Terminator. Okay, so let's assume that it's the Terminator. It's the Matrix. It's going to end all of us. Well, if that happens, I would at least like my business to be very successful between now and then. And this is the choice you have. I have a software company called PriceGuide.ai. What we do is we allow people to build pricing estimators for their website. And maybe we'll talk about that later, Dan.
Yeah, let's do that.
But what's powerful about Price Guide is that we have hundreds of customers on the platform. And our customer service is AI. I have one employee for a software company that's handling hundreds of customers now. How's that possible? Because AI is the one that's handling our customer service. Now, what's funny to me is people will say things like, well, I just don't like it. Okay, fine. Here's what I'll say to you. If you're saying you don't like AI, you're basically saying, I don't care where the market is headed. My feelings are more important than where the world is going. You see, I learned a long time ago as a business owner that personal opinions just don't really matter at all. Because generally what they do is they screw up progress when it comes to the marketplace. And what I mean, of course, is, yes, there's times when you go with your gut and this and that, but when the whole world is headed in a direction in terms of the way they buy, and you say, no, I'm going to continue to use my fax machine because I love my fax machine and I just really enjoy how it works. You can say that, but your opinion doesn't matter because the world is headed in this direction. In 1996 and 97, there's a whole slew of salespeople that said, we're not going to use this thing called electronic mail. I don't use electronic mail. I'm not going to do that. That was 1996, 97. How did it work out for those salespeople? In 2001 through 2005, there's a huge amount of businesses that still tried to say, we don't need a website to have a business. How did that work out for you? You see, it never works out when the whole world is going in a direction. Again, going back to they ask, you answer. They're asking you to meet them where they are. Your fiduciary as a business owner to yourself and to your employees and to your customers is to meet them where they are. And so that's where we're headed. And there's all these other arguments that people might say, and they're not gonna hold weight because what's gonna happen is if you refuse to use it, your competitors, first of all, they're gonna become much faster than you are. They're going to become faster with let's say, response time with sales. They're going to become faster to produce marketing content. They're going to become faster to deliver a product or service with the help of AI, right? It's like, so the speed's going to be better.
Yeah.
The experience is going to be better, and they're going to be spending less money in that process. And so you're going to be saying, I don't know how they're offering these prices. I don't know how they do it that quickly. Geez, it's so frustrating. They're doing it because they're using the technology the right way.
Right.
I don't know about you, Dan, but I feel like a superhuman these days in terms of what I can do with AI. It's extraordinary. I had somebody the other day, with my swimming pool company, they took our contract. They fed our contract, our proposal, the whole nine into AI. And they had AI completely analyze it. All of its disclaimers, all of its payment terms. I mean, now, I can complain about this, but it's not going to help. It's not going to make a difference. This is the future. The future is no ignorant buyers.
Right.
Ignorant buyers, uninformed buyers
It's the past.
won't exist in the future. That's a thing of the past. Now, ignorance levels, or like being uninformed, has progressively gone down since the dawning of the internet and the information age.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So circa mid-1990s. But now it's plummeting because the tools that you're going to see, your ability to use deep research right now to find every deal locally and to compare this and to compare that and to see what else is available. You couldn't do that at scale and with such extraordinary speed. Now, real time, you could be sitting across someone with a negotiation and you could do some type of deep research and you could immediately get a slew of comparisons, and now you become way more informed about the market than that person is. They lose their leverage. Now, again, am I celebrating it? Do I think that's necessarily always good? I don't worry about that. All I really care about is where are we headed?
Yeah.
I don't sit there and inject, well, I don't like that. I don't think that's good. I think that's less human. So I'm not focused on that because it's not going to help you to do it. Which, by the way, you can use AI to be way more human than your competitors.
Yeah, good point. So this is about the mindset, right? Fight it or embrace it. Now,
yes.
So if we go back to the question of you sitting in front of a CEO, your first point would probably be, if I hear you speak right, is to see where they are in their relationship to AI. Have they embraced it or are they still fighting? Suppose they're not fighting it anymore, and they say, "Hey, Marcus, we want you to help us maximize the possibilities of AI in our sales and marketing. What are some of the recommendations you would make? Or if you would be, for example, the chief commercial officer of a company, and you had unlimited budget, unlimited resources, and you would say, these are the first steps I would take in order to go with AI."
So when we look at this, the most common question that I get from business owners is, where do I get started? Okay, so let me get more basic for everyone that's listening, because I want to make sure that none of this goes over anyone's head.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to be great with AI, here's what I want you to do. I want you to go to ChatGPT, and I want you to say to ChatGPT, Chat, I need you to help me to use AI in my business. I want you to ask me as many questions as you need to ask me about my business, and I'm going to answer it. And then I want you to tell me, after the questions are done, all the ways that I could integrate AI into my business today.
Wow, I love that.
Now, you can actually do this with AI voice, ChatGPT voice. So you could do this on your phone right now. And those that haven't used ChatGPT's voice feature, it's shockingly good. Shockingly good. Full-on conversation, right? And if you do what I just described, you are going to be cooking. You're going to get the best recommendations specific to you and your company.
That would be your recommendation. I love it.
Yes.
So
I'm not even going to say start here. No, I'm going to say go to AI. Say, I want you to ask me everything you need to ask me about my business. And then I want you to act as my chief technology officer, an AI strategist, and I want you to give me the strategy that I need and the priorities of where do I start with AI first? What are the first things I should do? Lead me through this entire process, treat me like a 12-year-old, and then bam, it's just going to be extraordinary.
One of the things that I love this. So we've talked about connecting the philosophy of StoryBrand and they ask you answer. We've talked about the evolution of content marketing, right? From where you started in 2008 to where we're here today. We're now talking about AI and how it's it has influenced everything we do in our business. Even the way we implement StoryBrand, even the way that we implement they ask you answer. So our whole sales and marketing will never ever be the same again. Now, when it comes to implementation in an organization, it's funny that, a lot of people think when they hear about they ask you answer, it's about content marketing, but it's more about culture in the first place. Then second, I would say, if I've listened correctly to you throughout the years, the second is it's going to be a sales first approach always. And then the third will be marketing. Now, one of the things that leads up to is that this is really about how people want to buy. You've mentioned this in the beginning of our conversation already, how people want to buy. I want to jump into this price guide thing. You've created the whole new company around it with one employee. AI is doing your customer service. But the thing I want to get to is if we really care about our clients, we want to understand how they want to buy. And one of the things they need is self-help tools. They want to be in contact with sales later in the sales process, once they've wrapped their mind around a solution to their problem. Why is pricing such an important part in the buyer's journey and how people want to buy?
Oh, man, I just love this conversation. And there's a lot here, okay? So let's start with the two most important numbers. Today, the typical buyer is more than 80% through the buyer's journey by the time they reach out to sales. They're more informed than they've ever been. Okay, that's number one. So you better win that 80%, by the way. You better make sure when they're learning and they're getting fed that you're the one that's feeding them. Number two, this is from Gartner, 75% of all buyers say they would prefer to have, Dan, a seller-free sales experience. I'll repeat this. 75% of all buyers say they would prefer to have a seller-free sales experience. Now, this doesn't mean we hate salespeople. It just means we don't want to talk to a salesperson until we are good and ready, until we're comfortable, until we're confident, and until we feel like we're not going to make a mistake. So, some organizations will look at this and say, I think this is bad. Well, again, opinions don't matter here. What matters is we look at where the world's headed and we say, am I willing to meet the world where they are? So buyers want control. That means on your website, you need to offer more self-service. You need to allow them to have more control. Now, pricing estimators is one of that. Now, we're going to come back to this. Let's lay the foundation for pricing in general. If you're listening to this right now, and if I said to you, have you researched how much something costs online? You'd say, of course, Marcus. Now, I said, now, when you're researching how much something costs, and you're on a website, and you cannot find any pricing information, what does that make you feel? You would say, I feel frustrated. And I'd say, okay, why do you feel frustrated? And you're like, well, I'm the buyer, and I'm trying to make a buying decision. You're making it very hard. So, in this moment of frustration, again, consider, what do? Do you sit there and say, well, I'm just going to keep looking on this website? No. Do you say, well, that's okay. They're not talking about cost and price. They're a value-based business. I'm going to call them on the phone instead. No, that's silly too, because what you do as the buyer and the searcher is you keep searching and you search until you find what you were looking for. And generally speaking, whoever gives you what you were looking for, they're going to get your business. They're going to get first contact, first phone call. And I'm sure we could all agree that if we had the choice, we would rather be the first company contacted. Now, the real reason we get so upset in this moment as the buyer is because we know that they know the answer, or at least, Dan, a semblance of the answer. And because we know they know the answer and they're not willing to give us anything except call for quote, trust immediately leaves because the seed of doubt has been planted. And when seeds of doubt exist, inertia occurs and people don't move and people don't buy. Now, there's three arguments, main arguments, why companies don't talk about cost and price, Dan. First one they say is every job is different. We have a very customized solution, etc., etc. Well, that's the easiest one to address online. And how you address it is you explain to someone, just as you have many times before in person. Number one, what are the factors that drive cost up? Number two, what are the factors that drive cost down, again, for your product or service? Number three, why are some companies more expensive than others? Number four, why are some companies so cheap versus others? And number five, roughly, where do you fall in this whole equation? All right. Now, just helping people understand those things, you're defining value. And if you don't define value, then somebody else will.
Right.
And they'll learn it from someone else. So that's the first reason, is it depends. That's the first reason why companies say they can't talk about it. The second reason they say they can't talk about it is they say, well, we're more expensive and we don't want to scare people away. What we know to be true is the thing that actually scares people away online isn't when you teach them well and educate them. It's when you allow ignorance to exist. That's what scares people away, when they can't find what they're looking for. And then finally, the third reason is they'll say, well, I just don't really want my competitors to see it, which is utterly ridiculous. Because first off, if I said to you, do you have a pretty decent sense as to what your competitors charge? You'd say yes. And so therefore, if you have a decent sense as to what they charge, it means they've got a decent sense as to what you charge. This is the big secret, non-secret. Yeah, everybody acts like nobody knows what everybody's charging, when in reality, everybody's got a decent sense as to what everybody else is charging, right? So those are the three fundamental reasons. Now, the thing that people get caught up in is they don't have to give the exact price, but you do have to be willing to discuss it. Now, there's 5 levels of discussing pricing online. Let me give you the 5 levels, Dan. All right. And it's going to go level 0 through level 4. So even though there's 5 levels, we're going to call the first one level 0. I call it level 0 because it's not worthy of actually having a level. And that's when somebody has, let's say, a pricing tab on their website, and you click on it, and then it says, we'd love to give you pricing. Fill out this form, and we'll get you pricing. That just pisses people off. It makes them frustrated. It's bait and switch. That's level 0. No information about pricing.
Now, can I quickly reject or respond to that? Because I know companies that do that, and they tell me, this works very well for us because the people that fill out the form, we immediately phone them and we get into a discussion and we'll book a meeting and so on and so forth. What would be your response to these types of companies? Because they're probably missing out on something that they are not aware of.
Okay. First of all, I would say to the person, now you have to be honest. Do you like it when you click on a pricing tab, you think you're going to learn about pricing, and then you're immediately told, fill out this form? They're going to say, if they're being honest, well, no, I don't like that. But you see, my buyer's different. No, not true. Your buyer's not different than you. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, what they don't understand is how many they're losing.
Exactly.
Because they don't give the person a sense for things. So let me go back to my levels, and then we're going to further answer this question, Dan.
Absolutely.
Level 0, bait and switch, no information. Level 1, you have a pricing page on your website. This pricing page helps people clearly understand what defines value in your industry. Helps them understand what drives cost up, what drives cost down, what makes some companies expensive, what makes some companies cheap. You can explain roughly where you fall or where the majority of your customers fall, but you've given them a sense. Okay. People are grateful for that. They're like, oh, that's very, very helpful. Now they're more likely to fill out your form because they have a sense for things. Level 2. Level 2 is when you do what we just described, but you do it in the form of a video. And the reason why a pricing video for your product or service is so powerful is because they can visually see what impacts price. Seeing's believing. So they can understand better. Now I understand what makes this more expensive. Now I understand what makes this less expensive. Okay? So that's level 2. Level 3. Level 3 is when you have a pricing estimator tool on your website. Something like a priceguide.ai. So why is a pricing estimator tool so powerful? Well, because the most fundamental question that your buyers have, as soon as somebody starts the buyer's journey, and essentially what's happening in this moment is they're like, I have a problem, I have a need. And they say, first question, how much is this going to cost? Or roughly, what's this going to cost? Or am I even in the game? So this is the first question people have on the buyer's journey. Am I in the game? So in order for them to move forward and to really start the research, they need to know, am I in the game? And so that's why if somebody can come to your website and get a sense for pricing, it's really powerful. But with level 3, a pricing estimator, the way it works is they see some beautiful call to action on your website. It says, get instant estimate. And they're like, whew, instant estimate. Finally, yeah, whew, I'll take that. Then there's an interactive tool, and the tool asks questions that like a salesperson would normally ask. So a salesperson, normally, if I talk to any of your salespeople, Dan, and I said, what do you need to ask someone in order to give them a price range? They're like, well, I need to ask them this. I need to ask this. I need to ask this. I need to ask this. And based on these answers, I can give them a range. Perfect. Well, it's the same thing when it comes to a pricing estimator. It's going to ask those same questions, and then it's going to give them a range based on variables that you've put into the tool. Okay? So that's the power of a pricing estimator. That's level 3. And then level 4 is when you have an exact quote tool. Now, most companies, I don't suggest an exact quote tool. And the reason for this is because most things are variable. Now, occasionally, you can have an exact quote tool, but most services especially have too many variables to give an exact quote tool. And most people don't want or need, per se, an exact quote. They just want to know roughly what's it going to cost. And then they understand, okay, that's all I needed. So first question on the buyer's journey, roughly what's it going to cost? And the last question on the buyer's journey before they buy is, tell me exactly what it costs. That's when they're talking to a salesperson. So there's 80% of research, first question being roughly what's it cost, before they talk to the salesperson. 20% buyer's journey, talking to salesperson. And then at the end of that, here's exactly what it costs. So it starts and stops with pricing.
How is it possible that so many companies are not aware of this psychology of the buyer? It seems like, there's a small portion of companies that have taken this very seriously, are implementing it all the way, and are experiencing the results. But a lot of companies are still doing it the old way. Like even companies that you don't expect. If we would name their names, people would recognize their brand, but they're still in this old school type of mindset, I would say. How would you say? Because I feel like it's the time we live in, it's shifting. I mean, it's the most exciting time that we could be alive as human beings on this planet. I feel possibilities are endless. If you do it right, customers are endless too. But I really feel
right.
we're shifting into a new gear, and people are becoming aware we need to change things. But how is it possible? How do you feel? How do you look at this? Because you are on stages all over the world. You talk to a lot of business owners. Why is it so hard for people to grasp this? Because it's like I've heard you say there's a difference between putting on your buyer's head and having on your business head, right? It's so close if people have the right mindset.
Well, this is the reason why the majority of businesses fail, because they truly don't obsess with the buyer. I am obsessed with the buyer. And this is why I have been able to just revolutionize my swimming pool company and then so many other industries with They Ask You Answer, now endless customers, right? It's because when you're obsessed with the buyer, you get over yourself. So many of these companies really actually believe that they're unique, that they're special, that their buyer's different. That is a deadly disease. And people hear that and they get offended. They're like, well, I mean, we are special. No, not really. I mean, I own right now, I think 7 businesses, and I'm not going to sit there and say any of them are special. But your ability to communicate and give buyers what they want is what makes you special, right? And so what made River Pools special? What made River Pools special was the fact that we more prolifically addressed the questions, worries, fears, concerns our buyers had better than anyone in the world with text and video online. That made us special. It really wasn't our pool shells. You see what I'm saying? That didn't make us special. It wasn't our people. Because I'm not going to say my people are special and your people are not special. Come on, man. Who doesn't think their people are special? I mean, come on. Everybody thinks their people are special. So that's not a differentiator. What makes it different is when you show the thing. You see what I'm saying? Show the thing. We want to see the sandwich made in front of us, right? That's very satisfying. We like to know. And so it's amazing to me how these companies think they're different and it prevents them from innovating. That's the biggest. A lot of them don't follow the golden rule. What is the golden rule? Do unto others as you would want them to do unto you. Well, that's why I say all the time, would you want them to be willing to address cost and price? Well, yes, but no buts. You need to become more self-aware as to how you prefer to buy, how you prefer to learn, what makes a great user experience for you. And that would work with your customers as well. But we like to say, that's not, and then there's but that's not how it's done in the industry. There's another reason too, Dan, let's be honest, because, I'm an honest guy and everybody's already picked up on the fact that I don't hold back. And that is, I think a lot of leaders lack courage. They're just not brave. They won't do anything that hasn't been done before in their space. And how boring of a life is that? One of the things that I really talk about in endless customers that I didn't talk about in They Ask You Answer, although it was prevalent in They Ask You Answer, I didn't say it directly, is disruption. And the importance of disruption today. The utter need to just absolutely, if you will, just push the envelope and make your competitors say, what? You can't do that. Like, that's what we want. And most business owners, I'm not going to lie, they're not brave like that. They, as soon as they get hit in the chin one time, there's like, oh, they're folding. I mean, think about how many times did Tesla get sued by the auto manufacturers because they weren't direct. Airbnb, they got sued by the hospitality industry, right? It's like Uber got sued by the taxis. It's like they were brave, dude. They said, you know what? Sure, there's going to be resistance, but we're not going to give to that resistance because we know what the market wants.
Very good. One of the most, because if I hear about this, if I listen to what you're saying, there's a couple of things that have really begun to change the way that we do business. Whether we like it or not, it's changed. The buyer has already changed. The question is, are we going to change with it? Now, one of the things that you are known for is sales and marketing alignment. I feel like that is one of the biggest changes companies need to make as well. They have had a sales department, they have had a marketing department, sometimes with complete different interests, goals.
Yep.
There's no need for them to work together. Actually, it's something that could hurt them if they would work together. So you've been talking about sales and marketing alignment for quite a while. My question to you, how do you advise companies to make these two departments work together effectively?
Well, let's start with the why. If you look at the buyer's journey today, there's an incredible overlap between where marketing ends and sales starts. Huge overlap. And so because we have this massive overlap, we have to say, well, how is sales and marketing change? Well, marketing, because they're handling roughly 80% of this buyer's journey, they need to be more accountable today for sales and revenue. At the same time, sales tends to be the core subject matter expert. They're talking to the customers the most, or potential customers. They're answering their questions all the time. They understand what the market wants to know. And so naturally, they need to be involved on the marketing side so that marketing understands this is what the world wants to know. This is what we should be addressing. This is what we should be talking about, right? And so just from a common sense perspective, that's the way that it needs to be. But too many companies are extremely siloed. Marketing oftentimes is the redheaded stepchild of the organization, and that is just very, very problematic. Marketing should have a seat at the leadership table. Okay, that's sometimes not the case. That's problematic. It should not be that way. And we know that when these two teams meet together often, and sales is saying, hey, here's what we're hearing, and marketing is saying, here's what we're producing for you, that there's magic that comes at the end of that. Generally, we call these revenue teams, and this is when you have like representatives from both sales and marketing that get together at minimum on a monthly basis. That way they're on the same page, they're reading from the same script, and it's just not disjointed. There's no siloed effect, and it becomes very powerful. And I've seen a lot of situations where somebody was in marketing and went over to sales. They were super successful. I've seen situations where somebody was in sales, went over to marketing, and they took that background and they were very successful. And so the two need to be way, way more aligned. And the reason why this doesn't happen more often than not is leadership doesn't understand the importance of this overlap and the importance of this being essentially one revenue team.
Right. Yeah, good. I like that. Now, you've already mentioned that They Ask You Answer has become a new book, which you have titled Endless Customers. Why do we need to buy the book Endless Customers, even if we've read They Ask You Answer? What did you feel like are the most important lessons you want people to get a hold of? And because the book is coming out in April, right? So let's talk about the book for a minute. Why did you feel there's a new need for a new book for this 3.0?
So Endless Customers, why was that so necessary now, today? Well, like we started, AI has changed the world, and I couldn't market my pool business like I did in 2008, 2009 and get the same results, and nor can anyone that's listening to this. We've got to evolve. So evolution is important, and that's also why I felt like the book needed a new name, and I wanted to create something that long-term, as you look at least over the next decade, what is going to help you to be more successful? There are certainly parts of endless customers that you can find and they ask you answer. For example, the big 5 remain true. The 5 fundamental subjects that every buyer wants to know, and they want to research, that is true today as it was when I first started talking about it. But we've also got certainly more that's happening now. I mentioned earlier this whole component of self-service. We talked about a self-pricing tool. And one thing I wanted to mention about self-service is this is a mega trend where buyers have these interactive experiences online on your website, and they can get recommendations, they can get scores, they can get answers, etc. And of course, the most powerful that I've seen is a pricing estimator tool. That's why I started that software company with PriceGuide.ai. Just to give you a sense for this, Dan, for the companies that add a pricing estimator to their website and they show it well on the homepage, generally we see a 300% increase in leads every time. 300%. I mean, just almost just like every single company that shows it the right way, that puts it there. And so in the future, you want to have on your website recommendation tools. We call them self-selection in endless customers, but recommendation tools. You want to have estimators, self-pricing tools. You want to have assessment tools called self-assessment tools, which essentially give you a score and tell you a readiness score or something like that, right? You want to have configurators. A configurator allows you to build the thing that you're looking to potentially buy, all right? Whether it's, a product or service. You want to have scheduling tools that allow people to schedule time with your company and even schedule which salesperson they work with. These are incredibly powerful. I mean, this is the essence of what buyers want. Buyers want control. They want to choose their own adventure if they can. So that's a big part of it. Another big part of endless customers is, and I mentioned this, it really teaches you ways that you can disrupt, and not just with the big 5, but it teaches you how to take certain prompts that you can find in endless customers, questions, if you will, thought prompts, and help you see, that's an opportunity that I can disrupt my industry. Disruption is abound. I mean, it is just everywhere, the possibilities for disruption. Most companies don't think this way. And so I want to help companies start thinking to how can I disrupt my space, because that's going to get me a lot more attention. So we talk about that. And we certainly talk a lot about AI as well, and integrating AI into your sales and marketing. So there's a lot about this book that has evolved, and it's going to continue to evolve. I mean, heck, we could have another edition in 4 or 5 years. Things are happening fast. But if you want to have a modern post-AI sales and marketing strategy that will certainly be built to last for the next 5 to 10 years and can help you become, and this is the payoff, the most known and trusted brand in your market. And that's the key. Becoming the most known and trusted brand in your market. That's the payoff for endless customers. If you want that, endless customers is a system that will help you to do just that.
I love that. It's really, really something to have you on the podcast, to hear you talk about these subjects. You are somebody that keeps evolving. I've noticed that you are somebody who is really invested in personal growth and business growth. What is, my last question, what are some lessons that you've learned in recent years or even in the recent months, because, I mean, things go fast, that you wish you had known earlier?
I think that's a good question. I wish, and some of these things I've stated here because I state them out loud, so I will continue to remember them. I think the biggest lesson I've learned in business is that the market doesn't care about my feelings or about my opinion. The market goes where the market goes, and I need to stay ahead of the market. I've learned that you don't want to be reactive in business, that you want to be proactive in business, that those that are constantly in reactivity mode, they don't innovate, they don't do things that are extraordinary, and they essentially, 99% of the time, they end up following the rules that they've been given by their competitors. The part of disruption is you have to be willing to break the rules. When you break the rules in an industry, the market responds with, wow. And if you were smart, they say, I like that. I want that. I want the Uber. I want the Airbnb. And so the market responds. The leader, the current leader, complains. You can't do that, says the taxis. You can't do that, says the hotels. But then the market wins. And because of that, the rule breaker now becomes the rule maker. And the previous leader becomes the rule follower. And that's the circle of life. That's how it works, man. And so I would, in some ways, I wish I'd broken rules even earlier and not followed like I did. So those are just a couple things that I'm always thinking about now. They have become a part of who I am. And, also, you just can't be married at this point. You can't be married to anything when it comes to technology, when it comes to digital. Stuff changes too fast. And so don't be married to Google search. Just accept it's evolving and be married to how the buyer is evolving, but don't be married to the platform. That's not going to help you.
Right. Very good. Now, if people want to get in contact with you, Marcus, if they want to follow you and your thoughts, where should they go?
Well, you can find me. First of all, you can get the book at endlesscustomers.com. So go there, endlesscustomers.com. Make sure you get the book. There's some pre-order specials that come with it. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn. I am certainly a good connection. I'll probably make you smile. I'll make you learn. I'll make you think over there. So connect with me on LinkedIn. But Dan, this was a real pleasure. I enjoyed chatting with you, and I love what you're doing. You're very mission driven, which I think is wonderful. You've always impressed me. So thank you for allowing me to be on your podcast and spend some time with your audience.
Thank you very much, Marcus. And we'll talk soon. We'll be on the platform, and it's a pleasure to have you on the podcast, and especially also to follow you on LinkedIn, where you share so much value every time and time again, and being a thought leader where you share things and see things in a different light. So I really appreciate it, and I'm grateful that I know you and that you've really shared all this information with us, all this valuable content. Thank you.